All right, everybody. I think we can start the live. Again, if you're not able to follow this along live, no problem. We're going to have all the resources live on YouTube. So, this is the number 2 session of the 4 free webinars that we're planning to have this month. Um, Today, we're going to look over the prompting, and it's going to be how we can create better prompts that can also save us money from not regenerating as much as we need to, and to also make sure that we are able to create great prompts that really put what we have in our head, like our creativity, to the max. So this is what I'm trying to figure out in this class with you guys. Let me just see. I think we are sharing the screen. Perfect. Okay. So, welcome back. For those who haven't been here on the first live, I'm Tudor. I'm building AI animation since 2022, and I tested pretty much every single tool on the market, and I'm one of the biggest AI creators in the animation space. This session will be focusing on prompting, but last time we went over the pipeline, so the high level of how we can actually create animation, AI animation. And just to recap very quickly, last time we went over the funnel, then the 4 stages. We started with Pinterest and building mood boards and reference images from Pinterest, then to Midjourney to lock in the style and truly create something that has never been created, or at least doesn't look like the AI slop that we see all the time. Then we went into GPT image in Nano Banana Pro just to make sure that all the characters and all the words are consistent. And then we have the Seedance, which we create the movement. So in case you missed this one, the recording is on YouTube and also in the WhatsApp, and you also have access to the deck. You also have access to this deck and more resources, because this session is going to be a bit more technical, a bit more resource heavy than the other one, which was more of a funnel of the stages and how you can create these animations. Now we are focusing more on prompting. Okay, so this week, we are looking at the fuel. The fuel there's pumping in the funnel that we created last week. Because if you remember, if you had the chance to look over the last week's funnel, we did it very basically when it came to prompts. We did a very basic prompting on most of the tools. We didn't really went into details. We didn't give a lot of information to the tools. I just wanted to show you that you can do AI animations that are great without using very specific prompts. But right now, we try to nail down that part of the prompting. So I'm gonna give you a bit of review and overview over my prompting stack and what I use. It's not gonna be very complicated. I hope this is gonna be clear by the end of the session. And yeah, let's just hop into it. So every single level and every single tool needs its own prompting. If you take a look at what we did last week in terms of the tools that we used, Midjourney, GPT Image, and Seedance, we all need some sort of a tool that helps us prompting. It's nearly impossible to be able to prompt by hand or without using ChatGPT or Claude. Last year, it was possible because the tools were way less complex than they are now, but now it's nearly impossible. I would advise you guys to use Claude. You can do this in ChatGPT, but Claude is way better, and you'll see why, because we can do some really cool stuff with Claude. And Seedance is only working with Claude right now. I think 2 weeks ago, I had a project that I really need to finish, and Claude was down for 1 or 2 hours, and I had to switch over to my prompting for Seedance in ChatGPT, and it did not deliver. It was nearly impossible to get anything right from ChatGPT. So I had to wait until Claude was back up so I can work into it. And the idea with Claude is that it never really forgets what the rules are imposed. So if you set Claude right, it holds on to the information that you give to it. So all the rules, all the times, all the biomechanics of the character that you want to create are stuck in the memory of the language model that you use. And in this case, we're going to use Claude. And that will help you not only have your characters and your images and everything else consistent, but it also help you create it 10 times faster. Plus, it would cost you so much less, because if you try to prompt by hand or with a structure that you don't really have a hold on, it's going to be so much more difficult for you to actually go in there and create the first generation perfectly. And if you don't do it, it might cost you a lot of times if you just keep rendering and you keep getting generations out rather than just having one prompt that you really know is going to nail everything down. Plus, you're not going to wait this much. Now, this is probably the most important thing in this session, and it's about how to set up Claude right, like a studio. And the first thing, I'm just going to go over this overview, but I'm going to show you hands-on in my Claude how I set it up. So you'll have to create projects, and this is one of the best things about Claude, that when you create a project at the beginning, probably is going to feel a bit weird just because Claude doesn't really have a lot of information what you did. But if you select the project, and I'm going to show you how in a second, it's going to be so much easier for Claude to take information for all of your input that you gave to it. So to do this, you have to head over to Claude, and then you're going to start, let's say you're going to start a new chat, and we gotta call it Seedance 2.0. We're just gonna call it like this, do nothing now. I'm just going to show you as an example. So it's thinking right now. And then in order to do this properly, I'm going to set this to a project. So I'm gonna give this, I'm gonna put it into Seedance. I have a Seedance folder, and I'm gonna move it here into Seedance. And now you have a project. You can create a project from scratch, by the way. If you go to projects and you create a new project, then you can create your Seedance. But I already have one. And I'm just going to show you a bit into my Seedance prompt. You see how many chats I have since April 22nd. I have a lot of prompts here that are about Seedance. So if I go here into a new, if I try to type something new and I want to create a new Seedance prompt, Claude would be able to get everything out of this, out of all this conversation that we had with him, and really put it in. So I don't need to explain him again. I don't need to tell him what I need to do again. And this is very easy to create, as you see in projects. So you go to projects, new project, and you make one per tool. I would advise you to have one for Midjourney. I would advise you to have one for ChatGPT or Nano Banana, depending on how you use it. You can have one for both because they work kind of similarly. And then you need to have one for Seedance. And this is the most important one. While you can prompt something by hand in Midjourney and GPT image, you're not going to be able to do this in Seedance. Then what we're going to do is going to attach our knowledge. And this can be files, it can be prompts, it can be reference images, it can be character sheets, it can be literally anything. Style Bibles, all this information that you want for projects, you can just put it in here. You can even put this document that I'm going to share with you on the WhatsApp group into your knowledge base. And to do this, you go to the project, and then you see here, you can just put it in context, and you can give in context, and you can upload from device. You can even tie it with GitHub, because GitHub has a lot of skills for Claude, or you can just connect it to the drive. This is kind of easy. And then you can also give him some instructions if you want to. I don't necessarily feel like I want to give him instructions, and I would not necessarily advise you to give instruction to this. You can give it general instructions, but I usually just tend to give new instructions when I start new projects. So if I usually have different kind of movements that I want to achieve with Seedance, for example. So I'm trying to give him different kind of instruction based on the movement that I'm trying to achieve, but he will know how to write the prompt even if I give him different instructions. So this is one of the important things. And then one of the most important things here is the skills. So I created 3 different skills, one for Midjourney, one for GPT image, and one for Seedance 2.0. And what this basically does, if you load it into Claude, you'll be able to access the exact skills in the exact setup that I have for my Claude within your Claude without anything else. And I'm going to show you very simply. I'm going to send you the skills that you need at the end of this course, at the end of this webinar on the WhatsApp chat. You're going to be able to download them. And then it's so easy to install them. You'll have to go to here. You see, you're going to go to settings. And you're going to have to write in here skills. So here, when you see the search bar, you're going to have skills. And then you're going to be able to say create skills, add skills, and then upload the skill. So again, you're going to your account, settings, skills, and upload skills. And I'm just going to send you the file, and you'll just need to upload it here. You're going to have to load it a bit, and then it's going to be able to run exactly as it runs to mine. And just as an example, when you want to use that particular skill within the project that you created, you just need to put a dash, and then you're going to type the name of the skill, for example, AI Midjourney. And this is how you write a prompt. It's going to be very easy for you. So basically what your Claude is going to be able to do now is to access all of my skills within my Claude. And I think this is great. There are some other skills out there that you can use on GitHub, but I would not necessarily recommend you to use them. They are not always updated, and sometimes you're not going to get the same motion that I do, to be completely honest with you. I think like what my Claude knows how to do now is pretty much superior to any skill that you're going to find free online right now. We're going to update these skills pretty much monthly, or every single time we have a new tool coming out. We'll try to update them as much as possible on our community. And if you guys don't know, we're going to launch a community in 2 weeks' time. But this is just, I'm going to send you all these files in the group chat anyway. So yeah, you're going to update into your Claude these skills, these 3 skills that we created, and then you're going to install them, and then we're going to switch it on, and then you're just going to use them. As I said, you just press a dash, and then you refer to the skill that I just created. So it won't take you more than 10 to 15 minutes to create this project. So you just need to create 3 projects: the Midjourney, the GPT, and the Seedance 2.0. Then to attach the knowledge that you already have. So if you have any files or projects that you want to work on, including this PDF that I'm going to send to you on the WhatsApp chat, then you're going to write the instructions. I gave you the instruction within this PDF, so there's not really any need to create other new instructions. Then you're going to grab the 3 skills that I'm going to share with you, and then you're going to install them in the Claude. So pretty easy, pretty straightforward, and it won't take a lot of time. And this is all with free resources. Then let's go a bit more deep into Midjourney. Again, as I said, this is going to be a more theoretical lecture, so I would not necessarily advise you to take notes. Just like follow along, because I'm going to send you this PDF anyway. And I think it's just better for you anyway. So there are 6 elements that you really need to have when you write a Midjourney prompt. And while Claude is going to create this for you, I think it's very important for you to understand what you can change and what you should leave. So, for example, in Midjourney, it's very important to understand that Midjourney doesn't remember previous prompts. It doesn't have memory. You need to give him a lot of context. You need to give this model a lot of context and a lot of reference, because otherwise it won't be able to generate things like GPT. And you're going to see a big difference, because you'll be able to talk with GPT like it's your friend, like it's your LLM. You can just like talk him, hey, please change this. While with Midjourney is more like a robot. It hasn't really changed. It's still very straightforward. And the best way you can write prompts within Midjourney is to first start with a subject. And I'm just giving you the example. So a lone astronaut. Then you're going to have the environment, abandoned space station interior. So you can see. Then the composition, the white shot from a low angle. Then you have the lighting, soft bioluminescent light. Then the style and the medium. And you have like painterly sci-fi illustration. And then you have the parameters. And in this case, we're going to do with a wide, a raw style, and stylus 215. I'm going to explain you what these parameters means in a second. But for now, this is the main thing that you need to understand about Midjourney. It's a bit more difficult to get it right than it is with GPT Image or Nano Banana Pro, just because it's not your ordinary LLM. It's just an image model. So you have to be very robotic when you talk with it. In terms of the do's with Midjourney is, as I mentioned before, you need to write natural sentences. So there's a bunch of version for Midjourney. You can use, they even released a new one last week, which is 8.2. But the idea is that Midjourney understands language, but not tags. So you want to talk like a woman reading in a sunlit cafe corner late afternoon light, rather than woman slash cafe slash cozy slash AK. So you just really need to say as you envision things. So if I see something, I see this phone, I can say like an iPhone, I can tell the model, I can tell what it has on it, I can tell them this information rather than just like being very robotic. Then in terms of the aspect ratio, this is very important because you need to know what aspect ratio you want to choose. It can be landscape, it can be vertical. Again, this is up to you. The style raw, this is very important. I would say if you want to do animation, If you want to do animation, you really want to use the parameter, and you say style raw, because this won't let Midjourney to beautify or to add a beautification layer over your picture. So you're just gonna know that you're gonna have the raw style, and you're gonna have something that you really want, not something that Midjourney has a lot of input over, creating like a filter between the what it created and what you can see. The sref, as we talked before in the previous lecture, the sref is very important. So you want to create a reference. You want to give it a reference so Midjourney knows where to feed its image information from. And one of the very cool stuff about Midjourney, you can actually use a dash dash SW. And this, if for example, if you want your image to look more like the reference image, you can type SW50. Or if you want your image to look more like the reference image, you want to do a higher level. So in this case, 200. And if you want your image just to take some sort of information for your reference image, you can do like a SW50. So depending on how much your image do you want to look like the reference image, you can go from 50 to 200. Yes, and the most important things about Midjourney, this is also important that don't, is you don't really need a lot of fluff, like fluffy words. Like for example, this was ultra realistic masterpiece, award winning. Sometimes when you talk with LLMs, it's good to kind of give him this kind of information. But here with Midjourney, it just confuses um, the tool. You don't want to give too much information that is not specific. So it would just dilute the whole prompt rather than keep it straight and simple. So you want for Midjourney to have it straight and simple. Don't use words like masterpiece, award winning. They would just get confused because Midjourney would read award winning and might just actually put an award or like a guy winning an award in your picture that you don't really want. Um, you don't need any negative prompts. So Midjourney doesn't understand negative prompts. For example, if you want to say create this image, no logo or no text, Midjourney won't read it as a negative, and it will create the logo and the text. So you don't want this. At least not in the body, by the way. So you can put it at the end, but I would rather just not say anything about the things that you don't want. Yes, you don't want to have it as two contradicting stuff. You don't want something to be raw, but at the same time to be mystical, dreamy. These are opposite terms, and you don't want to confuse. But this would be general to everything. Cref doesn't work in V7. Cref is basically if you want to keep the same face as a character before, you don't want to use it in V7 because it doesn't work. But to be completely honest, we're not going to use it at all, because if you want to change the face of a character, we'll do that in GPT Image or Nano Banana Pro if you want to be more specific. In Midjourney, we just want to create a style. Okay, and these are some of the parameters that I think you might need to know. This is the AR. We briefly touched on this last week, but just to kind of remind you, the AR is the ratio, the aspect ratio. So if you want to have it like a 16.9, if you want to have it landscape, you're just going to type this at the end of the prompt. The style raw, I already touched upon again with the stylize. If you want something that Midjourney you want to take over, you can just like put like a very big stylized number. So Midjourney will be more creative. Or if you want to look more like your reference image, you can just put it lower. Then you have the chaos. Again, this is just like Midjourney will create 4 different images. And if you want a lot of variation between them, so you want like very different results, 4 totally different results, you can put like a chaos of 50. If you want them to be pretty similar, you just don't have to type anything. Then you have the CREF and the SU, which I think this is one of the most important parts that I already touched upon last week. If you want to create, this is 90% of Midjourney, so SREF. And then the OREF, which is basically if you want the character to resemble some other character. Because CREF doesn't work in V7, we're going to use OREF. But again, not needed for now because we have this whole process in which we reiterate things in Nano Banana and GPT. So I'm just giving you an example. Some of you might have seen my latest video on Instagram. So I have this image done in Midjourney. This is the exact prompt that I use, and I'm just going to break it down. I said an exhausted knight in a battered Polish steel plate armor lying back this is the subject, literally how the subject looks, what he wears, what's his stance. And basically, I cover everything: an exhaustive knight in a battered polished steel plate, armor lying back. Then I want the location. In this case, I have in a hillside meadow of pink and white wildflowers, a fairy tale castle with dark spires in the hazy valley beyond. So I give the foreground and I also give the background and also kind of like how I want it to feel. Then I have the camera. I want a low cinematic shot from the ground level. So as you can see, it's on the ground level, it's not above him, it's not next to him, it's a cinematic shot. Then golden hour, backlight flaring through broken cloud. This is the light. And then the style, shallow depth of field, photorealistic, cinematic film still. So this is the exact way that I want you from now on to structure all of your Midjourney prompts. This is very important. And if you want to write them to have your Claude say this exact things, you can just use the scale that I will give to you in the WhatsApp group, because this scale will basically structure all your prompts in this exact way. So you will have similar results. Now, don't forget to this one, you can also add an sref anchor. So you can add at the end of this an sref, as you can see right here. And then you can add the link of the photo you want to reference. Okay, so this is the Midjourney. Uh, uh, if you have any questions about this, let's just give it like 2 or 3 minutes. If not, we'll go back into GPT image. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, it seems like we don't really have any questions for now. Let's just go into GPT image prompting. If you guys have anything in the meantime, feel free to join. Feel free to write them. Okay. So now we have prompting GPT image or Nano Banana. It's very important to brief it like a creative director. So both models pretty much use the same kind of reasoning and same kind of prompting. So if you use a prompt for GPT image into Nano Banana Pro, you're probably going to get similar results. Now, as I said, I personally prefer GPT image because it locks in the identity and the creativity of the prompts better than Nano Banana Pro. But you can use both. There's not really a problem. You can try them both and you'll get pretty similar results in terms of how it looks. This is a bit different from Midjourney because you always want to refer to something. Whether in Midjourney you need to give a reference for just an art direction kind of view, here you need to be more specific. And this is why you use GPT image after you've created something in Midjourney. Because here we can actually reference it. So we can put into Nano Banana or GPT image the image that we just created into Midjourney. And we start with something like a scene. So where, time of day, what environment, what is it looking like? Then the subject, who is doing this? And this is where we can reference pictures. So we can reference it anything. So we can reference it in scenes. So where you don't necessarily need to be that specific. You can say like maintain the same scene, time of day, and environment as in the reference picture that I attach here. Same with the subject, same with the details. But you can also change them. And this is a very important thing. You can just like screenshot or use this. And if you want to change one of this kind of things, so for example, I just gonna put this image in here. We're gonna put this image and we're gonna say, I don't know, use this image, keep it 99% as it is, just change the mood or the materials from the uniform or something like that, while locking in all of the other things in here. It's very important to quote every render word. So if you want something in there, if you want something, you need to say it. So for example, you need to be very literal. So you can say like a sign that said hello. This is not a good way of saying, but you can say the sign reads hello summer in bold sans serif upper third. So you have to be very specific where you want it to. You want to edit it. So again, like 80% right, ask for a change. As I mentioned before, I want to keep 80% of this image, but I only want this specific thing to be changed. Again, we're using this not to create images, we're using this to reiterate images that we created with Midjourney. Because if we create images from scratch in GPT image, I'm not saying it's not possible, but most of the times you're gonna get something that looks very AI sloppish. So I would not recommend it. Um, Give every reference one job. So for example, image one and image B and image C. So if you want to change it, for example, use image one as a pose, image B as an art style, and image C as an environment, something like that. Um, Keep the pictures kind of where they are. So don't try to move them along. So be very consistent where the images are and give a lot of context. Again, it's very important as Midjourney. And if you use GPT image within ChatGPT, it's you just have that slight advantage that it will remember. Whether if you use it in an aggregator or wrapper tool, you're not going to have that advantage. So people will kind of look at it, the model will look at it and will not remember what you said before. Whereas if you want it in GPT, you can just like make reiterations if you use the actual app. So I would recommend you that just in case you want to use it a lot. Don't be vague. This is kind of like every single time. So stunning, epic, insane detail. You don't really want to use those words anywhere in prompting. You want to be a bit more specific. No negative prompt field exists. So no blur, no extra fingers. You just like try to use the positive for that. For example, it's like no extra fingers. Rather than saying that no extra fingers, you can just say 5 fingers or 6 fingers or 7 fingers, whatever, how many fingers you want. Um, don't reference images by position. Yes, you need to tag them most of the time. So you don't say use image two, but you can say like you can use the image that looks like this. You can say use image two that looks like a product photo if you have a product photo. And don't put a lot of references, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say. I would go more unless they are characters and you want to put characters in one place. But again, I will try to stay with 2 or 3 clear references. Yeah, and this you can see this is like kind of how you edit it. And I'm just going to give you an example of how I use GPT image to create a reference picture of me within this armor. So I use the first image that we created in Midjourney as the first reference. So the armor and the world, and then a selfie of myself, actually a photo of myself with my face as the image too. And then I got this output, literally a character sheet of me in that armor, exact same armor that we use. This would be absolutely impossible to do in Midjourney. This is why you use GPT Image or Nano Banana Pro. This was done in GPT Image. So this is the exact prompt that I use. So a professional character reference sheet, technical mode or turnaround. This is what I want. This is the artifact and the use case. Basically, what I want you to create, what I want GPT Image to create is an artifact. I want this use case, a professional character sheet. Then I want the reference roles. So basically, the first image is the armor, the materials, the mood, everything. And then the second image, the selfie, my face, it's exactly black curly hair, mustache, stubbly. Like keep all the references from this picture. I don't want you to morph me too much, like try to keep me as much as fixed as it is. Then the layout, just a full body front, back, left. As you can see, all these kind of poses. And then I have the constraints, the things that I don't want necessarily to happen here. I don't want like a perfect. I want the perfect identity consistency across every panel. I want consistent lighting, photoreal, no text, no watermarks. Yes, so these are the main things that you want to know about prompting within GPT image if you want to use this model. Again, you'll have the exact skill for GPT image sent to the WhatsApp so you can install it on your cloud. Let me see if we have any questions. Okay, right now we have more questions. What first question that I see, like, what if you're not using Midjourney? Again, as I said, you can still create a lot of things. However, Midjourney kind of is the difference between AI slop that you see online because everybody's using GPT image and Nano Banana as an image generator, not an editor. And this is kind of bad because you'll end up having mid results. I'm not saying it's impossible, and there's a lot of tools that you can use, especially if you have a reference image that has been created in Midjourney by somebody else. Because I do a lot of tutorials on my Instagram, for example, that I create a lot of the reference image in Midjourney, and then I send it to you as free resources that you can then edit yourself in Nano Banana. And we'll do this pretty much in in our community as well. Which platform should be used for image generation? GPT, Gemini, or Midjourney? So again, Midjourney for generation of the image and the style, and then GPT I would use for editing, as I mentioned before. ChatGPT and Nano Banana Pro struggle to keep the animation style that Midjourney created. It reverts to more standard style. It is true. It's a good note, but this is why I would try to get to the result that I want the most in Midjourney. So I try to reiterate as much time as possible in Midjourney and only make subtle changes in GPT. So I don't want to create the whole word. For example, I don't want to give him the picture of this knight, for example, and say, "Hey, create me the whole word now," because then it creates more generations. But if I just want to change a bit, I change my face or put some sort of features that I have, it would make just slight changes that won't morph the whole picture. So you're still gonna have the same style that you had in the Mid Journey, just with subtle changes that you won't really be able to see. Um, do we have to follow that order? Um, I would say it's not a deal breaker. I think you're referring on the prompting order. I don't think it's a deal breaker, but I would advise you, just because the skills that I created are similar in this order, but sometimes no. I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker, but it's just easy for you to keep track of this kind of things, and it's easier for the model to understand what you want to create. So to finalize the style, we need to tweak all the platforms for image generation. Um, I don't think I really understand this question. Do you mean you need to work with all these platforms? I would say yes. It's only two platforms for image generation, which is Midjourney, and then you have GPT image. Uh, and you can just change small things. It's not a lot to change in the tool itself. It's more within the prompting. Okay, let's just go to Seedance, and then if we have other questions, we'll come back to it. Okay. So now there's a couple of things that you need to know about Seedance, as I said at the beginning of the webinar. First of all, um, you should use Claude, at least for now, at least from what I know on 26th of July, 2026. I think Claude is the only capable model, from my knowledge, that can actually execute these prompts, especially for animations. Very, very good. And I think ChatGPT is not able to really reach that level right now. So what you need to know is that the video models, not only Seedance, Kling as well, are kind of punishing the mood board language. So what you use for Midjourney and what you use for GPT image is not gonna work this well in Seedance. Seedance would look more like a code, to be honest. It will look much more like a code. It will look like it has 30,000 characters. It's a lot of information in there. So you want to make sure. Oh, sorry. I just okay. So you want to make sure that you put a lot of information into it. So for example, you need to be really specific what happens in frame 1, what happens in frame 40, and what happens in frame 120, or what happens in frame 3000. Doesn't matter. You need to be very specific. And the way that I would go about it, again, this is very difficult to write by hand, almost impossible. So you will need an element. But the way that you can check that if your element is doing the prompt right, it will have the subject first, then the action, the first one. So the first subject and the first action, then the camera, then the settings and the lighting, and then the style, and then the audio. So this is basically how it works. Now, this can work for one scene. You can just have these 6 elements in one scene. And if you have 20 scenes or 10 scenes, you're going to have this time 10 or 20. So it's going to be a very long prompt. My prompts are usually 30,000 characters. Sometimes some platforms cap it at 30,000, so you can't write it more. But usually it's around 30,000 characters. And this is what a good Seedance prompt looks like, especially if you do it for like 15 seconds. And separate the camera from subject. I forgot about this. Separate the camera from subject always. It's very, very important. So you don't want something like spinning camera around the dancing woman, because Seedance will think like either the camera or the woman is dancing. It would not really understand. So you want to say something like a woman dancing slowly, arms raised, period. And then you go into camera orbits around her, steady, 360, very specific. So what you want to do, one action, one camera move. You don't want a lot of things per shot. So you don't want she turns, she screams, she jumps. It's just going to be such a mess. And it's so easy to tell for somebody that uses AI a lot how somebody that prompts this way, runs, jumps, turns, screams, looks into Seedance. I don't have an example right now. Quite a shame. But maybe you've seen those kind of videos online of animations in which like they move so unnaturally, not in the sense of like one movement, but like all the shots are kind of a mess because then one time he jumps and the next time he's turning and then the third time he lands. So like the whole cohesion of this doesn't really make it's not cohesive, so it doesn't really make any sense. Then you want to label your shots. So shot one, shot two, shot three. Now I know there's going to be a lot of information here, by the way. So I understand this is a lot when prompting. But if you use the skill set that I'm going to send to you on the WhatsApp group, you won't need to go through all of this. You will just use this maybe as a checklist to see if your Claude perform the prompts as you should have. Then spend words on lighting, so best quality, golden hour, backlight, all these kind of things. You really need to lock in the lighting. And these are some things that maybe you can look when you talk with Claude. And I'm going to give you an exact example in a couple of seconds. Then direct the sound. Say if you want sounds or not want sounds, or say that if Claude needs to take over all these things. And then give references for all the jobs. So you want to give Claude a lot of references. Also, the Seedance, you want to give them references. So you want to put the pictures, you want to put all these kind of things. The more information, the better. No negative prompts. Most important thing with Seedance when you prompt, no negative prompts. If GPT image kind of understands negative prompts, if Midjourney sometimes ignores it and doesn't really add something to it, it's fine. But with Seedance, if you say don't do this, no blur nor something, it will just don't understand. So never use negative prompts. Sometimes even my Claude writes prompts in which it has like a section at the end, negative, do not do this. And I just delete it. I never use it because Seedance always does what you tell him not to do. Never write fast. So yeah, try to AI models. Seedance is amazing. It's insane. One of the most, if not the most, the best model out there. However, it's still an AI model, and you don't want to rush it. You don't want to say like, I want so many quick cuts. I want so much information out there. Um, it's just like it will degrade the quality, and you'll have like blur images, and you'll have a lot of things that are kind of you have temporal noise. You'll not really understand what's going on. So don't use that. No format wars. Usually, most of the tools that have Seedance already have incorporated, so you can actually put 10 seconds. Sometimes it's okay to say 10 seconds. I would not necessarily agree with my own presentation right here. I think if you say the number of seconds is actually good, especially at the beginning, because like Seedance can reference what it can do at each second. But then in terms of 4K or like vertical content, don't use that. It's useless. Timing is useful in some cases. So I wouldn't necessarily agree with my own presentation. Um, Again, as the other models, don't use a lot of adjectives. It's not worth it. You're not going to get out of it. Seedance, as other models, don't know what stunning or award winning means, because for them it's just weird noise and words that they cannot really process or visualize. So don't use it. And then don't redescribe your image reference. If you already put like an image reference, I don't want you to redescribe it using the prompts, because sometimes the way that you describe that image and the actual way the image looks like, they're still a bit different. Even if you describe it exactly as it is, Seedance might be confused. Should I use the reference image that I just got inputted, or should I use the prompt as a guiding? And sometimes they are contradictory. Um, no negative, maybe except this line exactly. No music, no logo, no text on the screen. This is kind of, you can understand it. No music understands it. No logo, no text on screen. This is also important. You can use this one. Or no captions, no watermark, no kind of this. So you can use this kind of thing like 3-6 negative prompts. It's okay. And then you can write it as a storyboard. I won't go too much into detail on this one just because this will be covered into the skill, and I'd rather just show you how it is like. So I put these things, two images, into my reference images on Seedance. So I can just go into my Seedance right here. So I'm into my Seedance project within Claude. And what I will tell him is maybe I would use, I'm not going to copy them, but anyway, just imagine that I copy these two pictures inside here. And this is exactly what I'm going to tell him. He already has access to my skill and to my knowledge base. So he already knows how to create these images, these prompts. But I'm just going to show you how I usually start a new project after I give him all the information. So what I want to really figure out what kind of movement I want from this prompt. So, hi Claude, I want you to create and to research movement that is highly cinematic, very smooth, 4K, very high quality, cinema grade, 2026 type movie, cinematic, about the two pictures that I gave to you. So the one with the knight and the one with the character sheet of the knight. And I want you, based on that, to access the Seedance skill and give me a 10 seconds prompt in which the knight does whatever you want. Be very creative. Okay. So as you can see, it's very straightforward. I just don't feel like he understood Seedance 2.0, so I want to make sure. And this is pretty much how you want to talk with him. And why it's important to give him all this context, although you gave so much information, such as the skill sheet and all this other information, it's important to tell him what kind of movement you want him to research first. Because the skill and all the information kind of give him guides on how to build the prompt. But it doesn't really refer to the guide of information, type of information that you want the characters to perform. Because right now, I want this one to be cinematic. But sometimes, maybe in other prompts, I want it to be choppy. I want it to feel like it's a reference from another movie. And I want him to give him this chance to Claude to research how those biomechanics in that particular type of animation are working. So I want him to first like understand how the animation that I want him to create works. And then I want him to go into the structure of prompting. So kind of meshing those two together, in which like he understands how the structure for prompting from Seedance works, but he also understands the type of movement that I want him to perform. Because again, the movement in this one, cinematic, 4K, smooth, is different from a movement in a into a, let's say, animated movie, or like a choppy 90s animation, or like comic style. So there are so many styles that you can actually create that Claude really needs to understand what you're trying to give. And by giving him the reference pictures, I don't have them now, but you just imagine that I could paste these things, these two images in here. He understands where to start from. And then you can tell him, hey, make sure there's no music. Hey, make sure that the character is not morphed so you don't describe him again. So you can do all this kind of information, and then Claude will come up with something that looks like this. This is just the how you call the overview of it, but it usually will create something that's within 20,000 to 30,000 characters. So it's going to be a super long prompt that you'll copy and you'll paste it into your Seedance. Yeah, this is just a bit more examples that you can actually paste into Claude and give him. Like, this is like some things from the actual prompt. And this is the Seedance template that you're gonna have within the skills. So it's the format and the constraints of the things that I really want, the locations, the idea, the look, the action, and the timing. This will be pretty much the heaviest part of the prompt. It's going to be very long because it's going to go through all of these a lot of times. The camera movement and the audio at the end. So as I said, pretty much it's 100% impossible for you to write it by hand. Otherwise, you're just gonna be stuck writing prompts forever. This is why you need to write it in Claude, then to generate in Seedance, then you review it, and then you revise it in Claude again. You tell him what to change. So this is pretty much the circle. I would advise to try this circle in 480p rather than starting from 4K, just for the sake of tokens. And yeah, and this is pretty much it in terms of what I want to achieve within this in prompt semi masterclass, this short masterclass about it. So basically, what you need to recap and really understand from it is that you have these three tools that you need to use: Midjourney, GPT Image, and Seedance 2.0. In Midjourney, you want sentences and subjects. It's very important to have the sref. Then in GPT image and Nano Banana, you have a 5 slot brief with coded text. So you want to edit things you don't want to create. At least most of the time, there are some exceptions, and most of the time you just want to kind of refine things that you created in Midjourney. And then you have the Seedance, which is basically like a moving scene in 6 blocks. We have actions, we have movement, we have positive framing, and closing negative lines with no negative prompts apart from the exceptions that I told you about. So yeah, for the next time, uh, I think it would be good for you to build your own studio today or tomorrow. It won't take you more than 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to share you to this exact PDF with all the information that you can feed into your project into Claude, together with the skills that I built over the last 1 year, with all the information that we know, and they're updated for this date. Again, we will update this on a monthly basis within our academy that is going to be open beginning from in 2 weeks' time. So in exactly 2 weeks' time, we're going to start having the first 200 places. It's going to be a limited group in which we're trying to engage as much as possible with you and help you. It's going to be a paid group, but again, you'll be able to access all the informations that we have right here and more. So yeah, if you have any questions right now about this, let me know. Let's have like a 5-10 minutes Q&A. I'll wait for some of the question. I'm going to look over this a bit, and then if you have no more questions, or if you have any questions, you can just leave them in my DMs in my Instagram. I'll try to go over them as well, and we'll send all this information on the WhatsApp group as well. I'll wait for a couple more minutes if you guys have any more questions, and then if not, we'll see you next time on Sunday. I see a question about so do we need to pay for GPT Cloud, Midjourney, Seedance? You don't need to pay for GPT, Seedance, and all these things separately, because you'll see a lot of wrappers. The only thing that is not wrapped within this, you even have Claude in a lot of the tools out there. I'm not going to necessarily name one tool because there's a lot of wrappers such as Higgsfield, InVideo, uh, Artlist, Magnific. You have a lot of them. You have a lot of them out there. So um, you can use whatever you want. But in terms of what they don't usually have, it's Midjourney. Midjourney, it's on itself, so they don't have that. And then in terms of GPT, Chat GPT, you don't necessarily need it. You just need GPT image, which again, it's within this wrapper. So you need one wrapper tool that encompasses Seedance, GPT, and sometimes Cloud. And again, you don't need that max version of Cloud, but you need Midjourney. And for Midjourney, I wouldn't say you need the most expensive plan. I think like the $10 plan per month is more than enough, at least to get started with it. What's your opinion on using storyboard, and what will the workflow look like? In terms of the storyboard, you can use a storyboard for let's say GPT image, I think, but it's just mainly for you to kind of understand what goes where. I wouldn't necessarily use storyboards within Seedance just because you kind of alter the style of it. And storyboards are not that useful in that sense. I've seen a lot of use cases in which it works. It usually works in if you want to use real life, but with animation, it doesn't really work because it would alter the image, and I don't want to do that. I want to have my own images and try to do them one by one rather than having this kind of a lot of information, like a lot of information from the storyboard. So for animation, for this kind of greedy choppy animation, I would never use storyboards. For real life, for SFX, maybe. ChatGPT and Nano Banana struggle keeping the animation style in Midjourney created. Okay, uh, I already said this. You just want to make very slight adjustment. You won't want to create a lot of new information about it. Is any workaround for ChatGPT users? Cloud costs a lot of money. Again, I don't think you need a max plan for this. It's usually for coding that you might need more tokens. For ChatGPT, I think what you can do, but again, I tried it 2 weeks ago and it didn't work that amazing. I think what you can do is just go to ChatGPT and paste the prompts from Seedance and say like, hey, can you try to structure these prompts and try to come up with your own prompts? So you kind of feed him the prompts that Claude created, and I can share with you guys on the. I mean, you can actually try to break it yourself for the free plan on Claude and copy that prompt and then go to ChatGPT. I think that would be a workaround, but to be honest, I think Claude still works way better. How much does the paid class cost? So for our school community, it's going to be a community, it's not going to be a class. We're going to try to engage with you on a daily basis and try to send you like more tutorials or more references for Midjourney and try to keep engaged with you guys. It would be around 50, it would be $50 per month, $49 per month. But it's just limited for 200 people. So we try to keep the quality of the class and try to engage with you guys as much as possible rather than having a big class. So we try to keep that as limited as possible. Which one of do you use where you can have all of them instead of the paint? Yeah, as I said, you can use in video, you can use Higgsfield, you can use Magnific, you can use Artlist. So these are all tools that encompasses all of these smaller tools. Um, I think you need to do your own research to really figure out which one is the best for you, because they all have strengths. So it's just better to look like which one is the cheapest or which one is something like this. It really depends on your needs. But you can look into this. It's called Wrapper Tools, Wrapper AI Tools. So you can say, I'm just going to, I just posted into the chat. So you can just copy those and search on Google and you can see which one works better for you. They all have free trials, by the way. So use the free trial. Trust me, it's very important. Just like test them all out. Okay, I think this is pretty much it from the question, right? If you have any more questions, you can either send them on Instagram or you can save them for the next week's live. We're going to have a live at the exact same time next week. So if you want to join, we will announce it on our channels. So be sure you're not missing out on it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us here today. And I hope you got a lot of information out of it, a lot of useful information. I will send you the whole presentation plus the skills that we have on the WhatsApp group chat so you can follow along next week when we do something else. And yeah, thank you so much for joining, guys. I'll see you next week.